Assalamu alaikum. My name is Unair Asad and I will be the moderator for today's workshop. I welcome you all to our Context Awareness and Smart Environment workshop organized by IEEE. Our speaker for today is Mr. Mahmood Al Jaware. Mr. Mahmood is currently working as assistant professor in Computer Science Department, Sadabis University, Hyderabad campus. He has done his bachelor's, master's, and PhD in IT from University of Sindh, Jamshoro, Pakistan. In his career, he was the research assistant with the Institute of Information and Communication Technology, University of Sindh, Jamshoro, Pakistan. His research interest includes context awareness, machine learning, ubiquitous computing, and IoT. For the participants, there is an important announcement. You will be asked to mark your attendance twice during the workshop. Certificates will only be given to those participants who will mark their attendance on both times. Mr. Mahmood, you can start the workshop.
Yeah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. As it's already announced, my name is Mahmood Al Jawane. I'm working as an assistant professor at Schilit University, Hyderabad. In today's webinar, we are going to discuss about the context-aware computing and its related smart environments. So, in today's presentations, we will be discussing about the introduction about those environments. We will be discussing about the definitions that are explored in that environment. We need to take some examples. We will go through the history about the context awareness. We will discuss some of the issues available in the issues and challenges available in the context aware environment. Then we will discuss a little bit about solutions and some future directions. So to start, pervasive computing, which is also known as ubiquitous computing. Whenever we hear the word pervasive or ubiquitous, both means that existing everywhere. In pervasive computing environments, offer the users the required services to best meet their needs and desire with minimum or no user intervention. The needs of the user may sometimes be met with the provision of an atomic service, but most of the time, this may involve a composition of multiple services. So in ubiquitous computing, or in pervasive computing, or the smart environment in this category, it's divided into three different subcategories, which is the ubiquity, productivity, and natural interaction. Once we discuss about the ubiquity means mobile and ambient devices, network, and information. If we talk about the proactivity, in the proactivity, we have context awareness, we have activity detection, we have behavior modeling, we have the need predictions, and so on. In the natural interaction, it's embodied, it's multimodal, it's machine perceived, it's implicitly controlled. So those pervasive computing environments or smart environments, those examples are smart schools, smart homes, smart airports, smart stores, smart hotels, smart transportations, smart streets, smart offices. All of these are examples, all of those smart environments are examples of pervasive computing environment or ubiquitous environment. Now, those environments contain small, cheap mobile processors and sensors in almost all everyday objects. We have it in our body, like the wearable computing. We have it embedded into the environment, like the ambient intelligence. So context awareness plays a central role to achieving this, in which the services are discovered and interacted with based on context. Now, those smart devices or pervasive devices, for every device, it has a connectivity, it has a processor, it has a processing capability embedded into that device. All those devices are interconnected with one another to provide the user with the customized or personalized environment. Let's go to the definition of context. In the work that first introduces the term context aware, it was in Schilit and Thimer, refer to the context as location, identities of nearby people, and objects, and the changes to those objects. In a similar definition, Brown et al. Defined context as location, identities of the people around the user, the time of the day, season, temperature, etc. Ryan et al. Defined context as the user location, environment, identity, and time. They enumerated context as the user emotional state focuses on attention, location, and orientation, date and time, and objects and the people in the user's environment. Finally, Pascal defined context to be the subset of physical and conceptual states of interest to the particular entity. So context defines some rules of interrelationship of features in processing any entity as a binding clause. So what is context? The most general definition about context, the most general and broad definition about context is that the context is any information that can be used to characterize the situation of an entity. An entity can be a person, a place, object that is considered relevant to the interaction between the user and an application, including the user and the applications themselves. So context aware can be answering of those questions is considered as a context, like whom I with, the nearby resources, whom what I'm doing, where I'm going, when do I need to leave, why I'm here, why I'm feeling, how I'm feeling. All those answer for those questions are examples about context, and those can be used to provide a personalized and customized environment to the user. So we define context. Now let's define a bit about the context-aware computing. Now, any system which is uses context to provide relevant information and or services to the user, where the relevancy depends on the user's task. That relevancy and that use of that context ensures that delivering the right services at the right moment to help users in their everyday task. So in context awareness, all the devices available at our vicinity will be connected all together. They will need to interact with one another, need to interpret those contexts, perform actions on behalf of the user to make the task of the user easier and to perform the task on behalf of the users. So context, as we said, in order to summarize, it's an information that is used to categorize the situation of an entity, like a temperature, a user preferences, lighting, location, nearby resources such as the printers, history, and so on. Also, all those contexts are interrelated together in order to personalize the environment for the user. So the time, location, the social network, the blood pressure, identity of the nearby resources, identity of the user, the light intensity, and all those applications, all those contexts can work together to provide the user with a personalized and adaptive environment to meet their everyday to day task. So context-aware computing, where application that can detect their user situation and adapt to their behaviors accordingly. So it's very important to consider whenever we want to build any context-aware application, it needs to sense the context of the user, and based on that context, it will do some actions, or it will perform some actions, or it will adopt itself uh, to meet the user's needs. So any software that adopts according to its context is considered as a context-aware application. So the context-aware application uses context to present services and information to the users, such as the time of the day, restaurants nearby the user. Those also can use the context to automatically execute a service for a user on behalf of the user, like a phone call. A phone can automatically setting a weekly alarm for the user. Those also contexts can be used to tag information for letter retrieval. So example can be as a phone keep tracks of the recent calls and so on. Other features, as we say, presentation of the information on service to the user, like we have the example of the tour guide, where it's an application that guide the tourists about the different locations which they can tour. And the other one is the active badges, which is used for the location awareness in order to do call forwarding based on the required user location. The other one is the automatic execution services, like in smart homes. We turn off the light, we turn on the light, we adjust the temperature, and so on. The third, which is the tagging of the context information for letter retrieval. Like example about that, we have the digital camera metadata that add times and location to the name of the image and so on. So whenever we discuss about the context triggered action, we have to discuss about the adaptation. Now, in the adaptations, we have passive adaptations and we have active adaptation. If we talk about the passive context adaptation system, those context is presented to the user. Contexts are based on tagging. System is not active in terms of adopting. So in the passive adaptation, just only presentation of the information to the user or tagging the information. There is no action being performed on behalf of the user. While the active context adaptation system, where the adaptations to context performed by the system, the smart system or the ubiquitous computing system, not by the human users. So it's not presenting the information or tagging the information, it's performing action on behalf of that user. So it's performing action. Now we have a combination of both, which is a hybrid context adaptive system, where the human user guides or the corrects the automatic adaptation. Whenever the automatic adaptation takes place, actions are performed by the user, some problem with those actions, so we can override those actions or we can correct those automatic adaptations. Now, whenever we talk about the active adaptation, we need to discuss in details how we can achieve those active adaptation. In order to achieve those active adaptations, we have two approaches. Well, those approaches are called the parametric adaptations and architectural adaptations or structural adaptation. Now, in parametric adaptation, the adaptation triggers the change in the service parameters. Like, if we take an example, the user having application and that user listening to music while they are available in room. So as they approach the speaker, the sound decreases. While they are getting away a bit of the speakers, the sound increases. So speaker volume changes based on the user distance. So this is, we just only in the parameter adaptation, we just only change the parameter of that service. Like in this example, increase or decrease the volume based on the user distance. While the other form of the adaptation, we call it as the architectural adaptation or the structural adaptation. Now, in the architectural adaptation, the adaptation to context performed by changing of the structure of the application. So if we take example about the previous example about the parameter adaptation, we have a service. That service is just only available in one room. The volume of that speaker changes based on a distance, how much the user away from there. So we are just only changing the parameter. While in the structural adaptation, if we consider multiple rooms, now for every room there is a speaker, and whenever the user is moving between one room to another room, that would require to add or remove the speaker services available in those rooms. So for that, we need a service composition, which will be replacing the speakers whenever the user moves from one room to other. So in the structural adaptation, we are modifying the structure of the application. Previously, like in this example, speaker one was used. Now the user went from room one into room two. So we need to change the speaker from speaker one to speaker two. That's why we are removing the speaker one from the application and adding the speaker two and playing the music on that speaker. So the application is adopting by changing its structure in order to meet whatever the user wants. So, but this is not the situation. Means most of the time, the situation requires we use both of those adaptations. So the hybrid adaptive system, where the requirements of the system require the use of both forms of adaptations to meet whatever the user needs. Now, these are not just only the adaptations, but generally, whenever we say generally, Those are the more general categories of the adaptation, which is the parametric adaptation, where we change the parameter of the service, and the structural adaptation, where we change the structure of the application. So what are the benefits whenever we perform the contextual adaptation or the context adaptation? What are the benefits we get from there? It is useful for many of the application. It can reduces the information overload on users. It lessens the cognitive load on the users as well. It filters the information to fit a mobile devices, limited and physically moving display. It is also helpful for the disabled people to perform actions on their behalf. It is also helpful for improving regulation and control. So let's dive into the examples about the context-aware applications. We have the first example here is the smartphone adjusts the screen to the orientation of the device. So orientation is determined by using both the gyroscope and accelerometer. Once you move or flip your device, the screen flip along with that. That is about that is a part of the adaptation. So the context is changing the orientation of the device. The action performed based on that context is the display rotated along with that. Another example, we have a phone display adjust the brightness of the display based on the surrounding area. It uses the light sensor. If you have a very high intensity light, the display will be dimmer. If you have a low, then the intensity, the brightness of the display will be increased. We have also the devices that uses the GPS to display the user locations. Those can be used to find nearby stores, get directions, and we can use them even for status updates on Facebook as well.
Sir, we have an announcement to make.
Yes.
Participants attendance is about to rotate, and you will have to mark your attendance, and we will also need you to mark your attendance twice. There will be another sheet in about 15 to 20 minutes, and certificates will be given to those who will mark their attendance on both sheets. Thank you, sir. You can continue.
Okay, other examples we have that the time is displayed on the phone. You go from one time zone to another time zone, and the time changes automatically. The daylight saving time, if you go from one country to other country, then automatically detect the daylight savings and automatically adjust the time based on that. Other examples we have the device disables the touch screen whenever the user speaks on the phone. Whenever you are on phone call, whenever the how it performs that, it is performing based on the proximity sensors. So it uses the infrared rays to send a signal out. The time it takes to be reflected back is measured, and from this, proximity can be detected. So if you are in very close proximity, means the context is that the user is in phone call and the sensor is near to the ear of that user. The action will be performed based on that. The display or the touch screen will be disabled. Then we have also other examples which we mentioned before, the active pad system, which is completely location-based system. So one of the active pad is one of the first context-aware applications. It's based on location. It is used for call forwarding system. So based on your location, whenever you receive a phone call, that phone call will be forwarded to your current location. Now there are issues with this system, like whenever you are on a private call, will be forwarded to if you are available in the public room. So even the private call will be forwarded to that public room. Call is forwarded even to the important meetings. So even while you are in meetings, the call will be forwarded to that meetings as well. So this is example the first context-aware application based on location, and it is used for call forwarding. So in to be very careful here, whenever we talk about the active patterns, the it does not understand that if you are in the public room or if you are in the meeting or something else, it just only forward the call based on your location. So there are some issues with such kind of systems. Then we have other example, which is Skinner tracking trackers. It is uses the GPS to track the loads. It sends a notification when loads near its destination. It sends emergency notifications when conditions are met. So, like whenever you are 10 or 5 minutes away from the destination, it will send a notification to the destination that within 5 minutes it will reach, or it will send a notification to the owner of those trucks that the trucks will be delivered within 5 minutes. So there are some specific actions. Those actions will be performed whenever the conditions satisfied. So we discussed a bit about context and context awareness and some of the applications which we use every day. Let's discuss about the history. So as we said, the context or context-aware system was first mentioned in 1991. The term context-aware computing was coined in 1994 by Schilit and Timmer. Smartphones become prevalent after that. Smartphones are the enabler for the context-aware computing. So in summary, the concept of context-aware computing has been around for nearly 2 decades, but we are yet to reach the full potential of this technology due to multiple issues. Now, what are those issues? Let's discuss generally about the general issues in context-aware computing. When we have a context-aware environment or a smart environment, we are faced with the multiple general issues. One of those issues is user conflicts. If in that environment 2 or more users have different preferences, then how the system will respond. User control, whether the user able to modify the parameter of the adaptation, will the user be able to automatically correct the actions which is performed automatically, how much control the user have over the services or over the environment. The other issue is the privacy protection. We already know that these smart devices gather information related to the user activities. So how much is those information secure? Those data which we are gathered from the devices, will it be secure? Will it be will not be shared with anyone? Then we have the other issue with the user activity recognition. We are able to detect some of the user activities, but there are multiple issues. Sometimes we do not accurately detect those activities. Then we have the context inconsistencies. If we are gathering the context from multiple sources, so some sources will have some problems and they will give inconsistent context, then what actions will be performed whenever we have the inconsistencies with the context. Like if we have 2 sensors, the first sensors give us a specific context, the other sensor give us different context, then what action based on which sensors content will perform the action. Then we have the context capturing, context sensing. Even though we have multiple sensors nowadays, but still some of the contexts are not easily captured. Even those contexts are sometimes need more than one device. It need more than one algorithms in order to bring those contextual information into understandable information. Location awareness, indoor and outdoor. So whenever we are indoor, whenever we are outdoor, GPS can be used. But whenever we are indoor, there will be multiple issues. How we will check the user in the building, whether they are in the ground floor, first floor, second floor. Even if they are in the floors, they are available at which room. Based on those information, we might provide them some specific customized services. So still there are issues with all of those. So those are general issues that need still active for the research as well. So the challenges, as we said, The context may be incorrectly, incompletely, imprecisely determined or predicted, or it is still ambiguous. If environment context may be incorrectly, incompletely, imprecisely defined or determined or predicted. Context may exhibit a range of spatial-temporal characteristics. Context may have alternative representations. Context may be distributed and partitioned, composed of multiple parts that are highly interrelated. Context may generate data huge volumes. Context sources and local processes often needs to embedded in a low resource infrastructure. Context use can reduce the privacy of humans. Awareness of context shifts can distract users. So all of these are still challenges and active research areas where research can be conducted in order to provide solutions into those challenges. So let's discuss those issues one by one. About the simplest of the examples about the mobile devices and sensors it has. So one of the issues that the developer has little experience with devices that gather the data, like the gyroscope or the proximity meters and other devices. Data gathered from sensors must be interpreted correctly in order for it to be useful. So whatever data we gather from those devices, these data need to be interpreted. So these data need to be deduced into high-level context in order to perform actions on that. So we need to provide correct interpretations in order for those contexts to be useful. So also context comes from various sources, and in order for this data to be useful, it must be combined correctly, like the gyroscope and the accelerometer working together to determine the orientation of the screen. The context changes constantly in real time, which can be an real and an big issue, which need to be addressed at real time. This is just only with one of the examples. The other, we have the increasing usability or decreasing control. As we discussed, user control. If we are increasing the usability, we are decreasing the user control. If we are decreasing the usability, we allow the user to control more the application. So automation reduces the amount of work that the user have to do. So the users like the idea of a devices that completes tasks on their behalf. However, when users use these devices, they feel loss of control if a device has a high level of automation. So the issue is still there whenever we are providing the user with the automation. Now, the automations have some advantages and also they have some drawbacks. With those advantages, they can reduce the amount of work that required by the user. They can also be used to provide a customized environment to the user without their interaction. While if we do that, we take user control from the applications. So if the environment is fully automated, the user will feel they lose the control of the application, and which will be a completely shift from whatever we have right now. So if we shift from the environments which we have right now into those smart environments, there will be, if it's fully automated, there will be a problem with the user control. So we need to balance the usability of the application and the user control over that application. Then we have the privacy issues, like should the law enforcement be able to access the information which the devices gather about the user? Should the law enforcement be able to access the information related to the history of the user, where the user history locations, activity locations, and so on? Then context recognition is not always correct. As we said, we gather those contexts from the sensors. So sensors give us raw information. Those information need to be deduced into high-level context. Now, whenever we infer those raw data into high-level context, it's not always correct. So the context will not be recognized always correct. There might be errors with fusing the data. There might be error with the detection. There might be error with the interpretations, and so on. Also, applications become too complex, which reduces the accuracy of the application. Whenever we involve too many sensors, too many actions, so application become too much complex, which reduces the accuracy of the application, increases the probability of error occurs while performing those actions and gathering those or sensing those contextual information. Then we have the other issues about the user preferences may not match what the device does. So we might be able to detect the context correctly, and we might perform the action on behalf of the user for that context. But that action is not always match whatever the user prefers. So everyone, because everyone is different, everyone have different preferences. Everyone have their own idea of nighttime. So some of them, the nighttime start at 8, some of them start at 10, some of them start at 12 a.m. Some of them start at 1 a.m., some of them start at 5 a.m. So this is different. Everyone have a different idea about the nighttime based on their behavior. Also, everyone have a different idea about the warm environment. Some of them prefer the warm environment to be 25, 26. Some of them prefer 22 or 23 to be a warm environment. Some of them prefer 30, 35. Even the loudness of the voice, some of them see the volume of the speaker loud, while others will see the same level of volume of that speaker to be less loud. Then we have also the information overload. Users will be overwhelmed with the information which will be gathered regarding related to the everyday activities, related to the tasks what the user do, related to the locations where the user went. So the user will be overwhelmed with those information. Now, the last part, let's discuss about the solutions. The last part of the presentation is about the solutions. So solutions, we need to keep an appropriate level of automation in order to avoid the uncertainty. The more automation we have, the less control we have over what is happening. What happens if we give all control to machines? The actions which we will perform might be different from what we expected, might be different from what we preferred, might be incorrect, might harm the user as well. If it detects the context wrongly, it will perform action, wrong action. There will be multiple issues. So we need to have the appropriate level of automation in order to avoid those uncertainties. Again, would you trust your phone to give you a dose of medicine? In order, this is a very critical situation, like about the health of your user. So, will you trust your phone to give you the dose of the medicine? Will you trust the sensors available in your phone to detect about your heart rate, about the blood pressures, about anything? Then, based on those information, give you the medicine? I don't think so. Right now, I don't think we can 100% accurately say that we trust whatever the sensors can do. Those sensors available with the mobile phone, we cannot fully trust what they can do and give us a dose of medicine. We also need to keep a balance between uncertainty and automation. So this is very important. In order to attain user control and provide usability, we need to have a balance between the user control and the automation in the environment.
Sir, we have an announcement to make.
Yeah.
Participants, second attendance sheet link will be available in a minute. Kindly mark your attendance on that sheet. Thank you. Sir, you can continue.
Yes. Thank you. We need to avoid the uncertainty and interruptions. Phone flashes a notification every 30 seconds is not visible for the users. If you use the smart applications or the context server application, and you are moving in one street, and it will tell you about the restaurants available nearby you. It will tell you about the item on sales in the market, in the mall, or it will tell you information regarding to your current location and current activity. So there will be too much disturbance for the user to flash a notification every 30 seconds. Eventually, the user will ignore those kind of applications. So we need to keep uh, the interruption as much minimum as we can. We need to avoid information overload. Too much information can overwhelm the users and bog down the device. If we are walking down a busy street, a user's device is bombarded with suggestions of places to shop from. So the user is walking down in very busy street, and the device does not understand that this is a very in this situation. I cannot go for the shoppings because it will take a lot of time from me. So the user information, the device gathered information is just only related to the location, which will suggest the user some places to shop while it is not convenient for the user at that specific time to go for shopping. So contextual information which we sense, actions which we perform, is not just only based on one sensors. It must be from different locations. It must be based on different environments, like the location, the business of the street, the mode of the user. Then we need to minimize those information. Uh, Actions might be performed if we were able to identify that the street is too much busy and the user is not able to do shopping at this time, so we will not give suggestions to the user at that specific time. So we need to avoid the information overload to the user. We need to be sure that the user feels in control of the application. As we said, too many automated actions will result in loss of control to the user. So we need to provide a balance between the automation and user control. Smart actions, a good balance. Smart actions might be a good balance. Smart actions, like there's an application available with the Android phones. That's called as a smart action. So it will ask you, if you see here, it will ask you what is the action, how you will trigger that action, and whenever you have a text, whether you will reply auto reply to that text or not. So if we talk about actions, those smart action application will allow you to do actions, whether you want to send a message, remind something, let the phone remind you of something, let the phone play music, let the phone adjust the ringer volume, let the phone set specific ringtone, let the phone set specific wallpaper, let the phone announces a call and text. So you can trigger those actions based on specific context. So that specific context, I am at specific location. Like whenever I am in a meeting, I want to use the auto reply text. And whenever, well, it will remind me, maybe while I'm in specific location, while my phone is not moving, while during a specific time, while my battery is low, while charging status charges changes, my display status changes, my phone is docked. So you can have a mix of those actions, and you can specify when you will trigger those actions based on different events. And once those things occurs, then you can specify what you want to do with the auto reply. Whether you want to reply to the callers, reply only to the contacts in my phone book, you want to reply only to the people you specified. So this is one of the simplest of the smart applications for your mobile phone. Those are the actions which you can perform. Those are the triggers, means the conditions when those actions will be performed. And those, whenever you want to send a message, whether you want to send it to the caller, whether you want to everyone calling you, whether you want to send it to someone in your only in your phone book, whether you want to reply to specific people and so on in specific time. So this is a fully customizable application, a fully customizable smart application which you can install on your mobile device. Then we need to keep an appropriate level of system status visibility. We will allow the user to see what actions the device is taking, like whenever the device is controlling some specific service on my behalf, we need to allow the user to see that the environment is controlling that specific application based on some specific context is detected automatically. So we need to be sure that the user understands why the device is performing the action. Uh, whenever the device takes action on behalf of the user automatically, we need to make sure that the user understands why that device performed that specific action. Uh, Accounts for the impact of social context. A loud alert is not ideal for all situations. We need to understand that we need to customize the notifications for the user, the alerts giving for the users. If I am in a meeting, I just will give me in through vibration. If I am in public space, give me a loud alert along with vibration. So we need to account for the impact of the social context. Depending on wherever the user situation, based on that situation, we need to provide the appropriate action, the customized action based on the user. We need also to allow for the personalization of individual needs, which will allow users to change locations names, set location name to home, for example. We will allow the users to customize or personalize those smart actions. We need also to secure the user privacy. Selling information to advertiser is not, this is not always right. So the context of our application need to secure the user privacy. Whatever information gathered regarding that user need to be kept secure and only shared with the user permission. Giving information to the police, when does this cross the line? We can give the information about some specific information, but we cannot give all the information that the device has gathered regarding the user. Sharing context information with others, like Facebook location, we need to be careful in doing so, because sometimes if we are doing that automatically, it might be inappropriate for the user for some specific situations. So we need to understand the privacy of the user and just only secure those information, only share it whenever the user gives the permission for sharing. Then the whatever solutions we have discussed here, those solutions about what we can tune the application, how we can tune the application, what things we can add to the application, and what things we can do in order to meet the different issues that the smart environment raises. Now, this is a solution for the developers, those who develop smart environments. They need to develop that smart environment based on separation of concerns. So if we talk about context-aware services or context-aware adaptation, inside the adaptation process, various concerns are involved, such as context acquisition, how we are sensing the context, adaptation decision logic, or the adaptation concerns, what actions or when to trigger what actions or when to trigger what adaptation. Also, the adaptation mechanism, whether we will perform the parameter adaptation, will the modification or tuning the parameter of the application, will it suffice for meet the user needs, or we need to perform structural adaptation or compositional adaptation. So in order to simplify the development process and achieve dynamic programmability, those concerns must be treated separately and independently of each other by following the separation of concern principles. So if we talk about the context-aware application, we have different concerns like the application code, the services which will be provided to the user. Within we have the adaptation decision logic, when to trigger what adaptations or when to perform what action. Then we have the context monitoring or contextual sensing or context acquisition. So if we will follow the separation of concern, we develop different concerns independently from each other, then modifications and allow us to perform the adaptations. The appropriate adaptation will be much more easier. Now, whatever we have discussed, those are the different issues, different challenges, and different examples, and how we can address those challenges. Now, this is for the future. If you are interested in doing any research in context awareness or the smart environments, so these are some suggestions for the future research. You can do in healthcare devices. You can do devices for measuring the blood sugar and give notification or perform actions on behalf of the user. That will help the user in managing their health. You can also do the carbon monoxide detectors. You can also the breath analyzer in order to identify if there is a need of emergency or not. A fall detection. This is very important, specifically for the elderly people. So, if we will able to detect the fall, we can provide the care services for those elderly available in the smart home accordingly. So in the healthcare devices, it's not just only for the elderly care or for the disabled users and so or for the chronically ill users. It can be used even for the normal users as well. The other thing is in the law enforcement, we can provide the ability to solve crimes using the contextual information from devices. We already know in the context-aware information, the devices, the smart devices around us gather contextual information. Those contextual information will be saved into history, maybe used later on to provide some other information. This is in normally the adaptation. So in the law enforcement applications, they can use those information to solve crimes. In vehicles, we can use it as well for cars that are able to drive themselves. They're self-driving cars. Uh, in order to perform the collision avoidance, it can warn if give warning or a notification if it's departing the lane, which is appropriate lane. It's automatically adjusts seats and headrests to avoid whiplash. It warns if a car is in blind spot when changing lanes. Also, the context-aware application is also helpful for the retails, and an application could make smart recommendations based on where you have eaten in the past. It can give you a smart recommendations based on what type of food you preferred. What is if it knows what budgets you have based on the atmosphere you like, then it can suggest you the appropriate recommendation for dining. It and also can use the smartphones to be able to tell the types of products you buy and send advertisement or coupons based on those products. We can inside the retails in the malls and other thing. They can use the RFID chips in the product. They can use the iBeacon chips in those products in order to provide information or provide advertisement to the users shopping in those retails. It will be able to tell what customers buys and send them relevant coupons. It can give them suggestions based on their buying history before. We can do many things if we have the information, the right information. In gaming, we can use the gyroscope will revolutionize the mobile gaming. One of the example which we have the Wii, which is the unofficially known as Nintendo Wii, which is an example which uses the gyroscope to give you familiarity that you are. It moves. It give you more gestures, more interaction with the game. Uh, this is depends on whether the phones will be able to incorporate the same technology or not, whether we will be able to perform the gaming on the phones as we perform it in the Wii uh, uh, console. Other examples, we have the Google Sky Map, where they use the accelerometers. We have also the gun range app for iPhone, which is uses the gyroscope and the accelerometers to provide the information to the users. So up to here, the webinar is ended. If you have any question, if you want to ask anything, feel free to do so.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for the session. We have any questions?
Yeah, I'm available if anyone has any question regarding to the context awareness, the future directions, research in these areas. So I'm available. So for the moderator, if anyone have a question,
Sir, I don't think they have any questions, but if they have any question, they will contact you, and I hope you will be available for them.
yeah, of course, of course, of course.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for the session, and it was a pleasure. Thank you so much. Signing off on the behalf of IEEE. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, thank you.